Let's continue working our way through our dichotomous key for how to name tissues by looking at our special connective tissues of bone and blood. In our last video, we looked at how to name cartilages as a subcategory of connective tissue. We did that by finding cells trapped in their own lacunas. Well, we're going to see something sort of similar when it comes to our special connective tissue of bone, but there is a major difference here that we need to be able to identify. So let's take a closer look at bone or osseous tissue. Now, most of the bones of the body actually started out as a framework of hyaline cartilage before being ossified and turned into bone over time. And because of that, there are some similarities in structure between hyaline cartilage and osseous tissue, especially that the living cells of bone, the osteocytes, are trapped inside of lacuna, their own little chambers. Something that's a little bit different here, though, is that most of the time when osseous tissue is removed and turned onto a microscope slide, the living cells are typically not captured, and we're left with these hollowed out, dark-looking chambers where the cells would have been found in the living tissue. There's still the lacuna, which is an artifact of how the bone grew. But something that's different about osseous tissue compared to hyaline cartilage is that here the lacuna are found on these repeating ring-like structures. We can see sort of the age ring of a tree appearance to the osteons inside of the bone tissue. Each of those rings that the lacuna are found on are called lamella. We didn't see these circular lamella in hyaline cartilage, but we do find it here in osseous tissue. Another big difference is that hyaline cartilage and cartilages in general are avascular tissues. They don't have a blood supply directly to or from them, but osseous tissue can. In the very center of all of these lamella is an area called the central canal, which is a long tube that travels pretty much the entire length of a bone and is a place where blood vessels and nervous tissue pass through osseous tissue within the living body. So we see these artifacts that make this tissue different than hyaline cartilage. The other special connective tissue is blood. And blood is special because of, well, some special cells that we find in there. Like, most of blood is made of cells called erythrocytes, commonly referred to as red blood cells. Something that's special about erythrocytes is that they are anucleate. They don't have a dark staining nucleus in them, which makes them different than other cells that we find in the body. But another kind of special cell that we find inside of blood tissue are the leukocytes, commonly called white blood cells. And something that's special about those is that they can be multinucleate cells, meaning they have more than one nucleus. There are very few cell types in the human body that are multinucleated, leukocytes being one of them, and skeletal muscle being another. Well, this isn't skeletal muscle, so if I'm looking at red blood cells and white blood cells, I'm probably looking at blood. Let's take a recap of what we've done so far. We've worked our way through 2 of the 4 major categories of tissues. We did that with our dichotomous key. We always start by finding cells. Then we ask, do those cells pack closely together? For the 2 categories we've named so far, our answer to this question has been no, the cells don't pack closely together. To tell the difference between those 2 categories, we need another question. Are those cells neurons? If yes, they are, we're looking at nervous tissue. If the cells don't pack closely together and no, they aren't neurons, we're probably looking at connective tissue. Once we've decided we're looking at connective tissue, we need to ask some questions to help us describe the extracellular matrix, like how much white space do we see? And what do the fibers look like if we can see them? So coming up, we need to take a look at what happens when cells do pack closely together. That's going to lead us towards our other two categories of tissues, our epithelial tissues and our muscular tissues.